This is WCBH on Darwin's 97.7.
Take two.
Jono, it's 12 months since we spoke about the opening round of the AFL. I'm currently travelling. I'm in Spain at the moment, so I'm picking up bits and pieces and try to catch up with as much as I can. Has it been as a debacle as like it was last year? From memory, there was a cyclone that impacted the opening round.
Yeah, correct, Cam. It was a cyclone up at Brisbane last year, which knocked one of the games out, which was played in the bye round prior to the final starting last year. But there hasn't been any debacles like that. The 5 games got through unscathed, but it still hits a little flat with only having 10 teams participate and having 8 on the sidelines. But round 1 coming up this week will hit the mark, no doubt.
What is the thought process behind only having 5 games, 10 teams playing when you're up against rugby league, who takes the whole show to Vegas
Yes.
and then backs it up the following weekend with the rest of the opening round?
Yeah, and I think the AFL's idea is to highlight games in Queensland and Sydney, which they did last year. And this year they've added the extra game in where there's the MCG game, Collingwood and St Kilda. But it's more to showcase the games up in the northern states. Obviously, Victoria's AFL stranglehold, but it still misses the mark for mine.
I don't get it. It's opening round. You want to see your team play. And if you're a team that's not playing, opening round means nothing to you.
Absolutely nothing. And, you know, I'm a passionate Geelong supporter, Cam, as you know. So opening round after the Geelong debacle on the weekend probably holds a little less significance for me now.
I do want to get into that in a couple of moments because I've got that near mark from Mac Andrew that I want to talk about and the excitement that he's bringing to the Gold Coast Suns. But let's start off with the Sydney Swans up against Carlton. The Swans 132 over Carlton 69.
Yeah, 63-point win to the Swans. They were up by 10 points at halftime, would you believe? It was a much anticipated this game with Charlie Curnow leaving Carlton last year and heading to Sydney in return for Ollie Florent and Will Hayward. They ended up at Carlton. But for the Blues to be 10 points up at halftime, they were looking good. And then Sydney just came out of the blocks after halftime and kicked 12 goals in the third quarter and put the game beyond doubt. And that was all she wrote by then. It was all over.
Yeah, well, the Blues fans, they would have been buying their September tickets by halftime, I'd say, and then
Yeah,
possibly
and
tearing them up by full time.
yeah, and they've thrown their membership tickets in the microwave now. So
Oh, the poor old Blues. Hopefully they come good. Let's go to the Gold Coast versus your Geelong Cats, 125 to 69. The Suns, this looks like a year where they'll make finals.
yeah, it certainly does. They're actually, as we sit right now, Cam, premiership favourites. So who would have ever thought that would be a possibility? But my poor old Cats, the 56-point margin, I think at one point there was almost about 15 goals, the margin. The Cats looked like absolute witches' hats. Christian Petrarca coming across from Melbourne to the Suns had 34 possessions and kicked 3 goals, and he was unstoppable. And the poor old Pussycats had no answers. The only thing that I can think of, Cam, is historically a lot of the sides that play late into September, and obviously Geelong have and Brisbane and so on, they tend to start their pre-season, 6 weeks later than a lot of the clubs that don't play in the finals. So
Sure.
I'm hoping the Cats have just given these other teams a little bit of a head start, but that's me just crossing my fingers and hoping.
Well, it's a good point because you don't win a premiership in March. I'm a Gold Coast Suns supporter, Gold Coast Titans. Gold Coast sporting franchises have struggled across the years. So your comment before that the Suns are actually premiership favourites, like people believe that strongly that they are the top of the
Unbelievable. It was on the radio, SEN today. I heard on the radio the Suns are premiership favourites.
Wow.
Who would have thought?
Let's talk about Mac Andrew. He's an exciting prospect, isn't he?
He's got some serious talent, that young fella. He, the mark you're talking about, the nearly held. He's got all the attributes to just do anything. So hopefully, for his sake and for the Suns' sake, he stays uninjured for his career because he could be anything.
And last year he signed that long-term deal for the Suns, didn't he?
He did. So he'll be there for, I can't recall off the top of my head what it was, Cam, but it was a substantial number of years. Was it 8 even, maybe?
Yeah, I'm thinking it was 5 plus. So this
Oh,
is what we would call a franchise player.
yeah, long-term deal. So they've got him. So hopefully, and he's only 21, I think. So he's got a lot of footy ahead of him. So, yeah, he's an exciting prospect, that's for sure.
Now, I suppose we've got to stop calling the Suns and GWS the newbies, but because very soon
No,
we'll have Tassie as the newbies. But the other newbie team, GWS 122 over the Hawks 95. Gee, they racked up some points in the first round, didn't they?
no, they certainly did. And last year that I picked the Giants to win the flag, and I hopped right off them this year. I have, and I tipped Hawthorn, and the Giants have proved me wrong first up with Hawks getting up by 27 points. Jakey Stringer kicking 5 goals for the Giants, and they look pretty good, the Giants. And a lot of my thought process tipping Hawthorn was the Giants are carrying a considerable amount of injuries, and there's some seriously good players that didn't play on Saturday. So it was a bit of a turn up, and well done to them. And the Hawks will be looking to bounce back this week.
At the Gabba, the Dogs got up over the Lions.
Unbelievable game of football. The Lions led by 13 points at three-quarter time, and were out as much by about 4 goals in the third quarter. And the Doggies just kept coming and ended up winning by 5 points. They had a chance to kick a goal. The siren just beat them at the end, so it would have been 11. But yeah, that was a very good win by the Dogs and great way to start the year for them.
So the defending premiers go down in opening round.
Yeah. So, but they were competitive enough, Cam, that I'd rather be on the Lions bandwagon at the moment than the Cats. Put it that way.
Fair enough, fair enough. Brisbane did the double last year with the Broncos and the Lions, winning both the NRL and AFL premierships, and both went down in round one.
One.
So the Suns providing a bright spark there for Queenslanders. Collingwood up against St Kilda. Was there an American superstar or something out who I saw donning the Magpies colours?
I don't know, Cam. I'm not sure about that one, but I do know that there were 85,000 at the MCG, including myself. I actually went to this game, and it was magnificent. There was a lot of hype prior to the game, considering the amount of players that St Kilda have brought in to their side this year and the money that they've spent to get these clientele across. And they were pretty good, and they had plenty of chances to beat the Pies. The Pies got up by 12 points in the end, but St Kilda had 18-9 inside 50s in the last quarter, and they just panicked, lacked composure, didn't know how to finish off the game, and they could have really won that game. Fortunately for the Magpies, they had the Dacos brothers. Nick accumulated 41 possessions and Josh 34, and they were probably the difference in the game in the end. But the Saints, they'll be licking their wounds after that one because that was a very gettable game for them.
So they're looking at top 8 this year, aren't they?
You would think so, yeah. But they've just, as long as they can be a little bit more composed in games when they need to be, they've got the talent on paper that look like they can do some damage. But I suppose the next thing's executing it, isn't it?
It's tough buying new players, bringing them all together, and expecting them to click from the opening round. It hasn't always been successful in rugby league in terms of big name recruitment to take yourself from the bottom to the top. You usually have to grow it from within.
It will take time, and there's no doubt about that. And the Saints, they've got enough talent on the park for this to gel and for them to work. But I suppose in another 2 months' time, we'll just see how things are working for them.
All right, let's run through this because I think I find this a little bit embarrassing. But as a rugby league supporter, you've just given us just a free pass yet again. The
Go.
Crows, the Bombers, the Dockers, the Demons, the Kangaroos, Port, the Tigers, and the Eagles all sitting on the sidelines opening round.
I don't get it. I don't get it. And after last year's debacle, considering the cyclone in Brisbane and being cyclone season again, there were games scheduled in Brisbane and the Gold Coast for a second year running. So, and I think it might have been the Geelong game. There was 30 mil of rain on the Gold Coast that morning. So it's not like it wasn't half a chance to turn pear-shaped again. But anyway, they got through unscathed.
They did. Well, let's go from opening round into round one. I don't know what the difference is. I would have thought opening round was round one, and round one should actually be round two. I don't quite get it, but let's start off with the Blues and the Tigers.
Well, the difference is we've got every team playing this week, and it actually feels like round one. And historically, Richmond and Carlton, as they will be doing Thursday night, kick off the round, and that historically has been the opening game of the season for the last 15 years. So it feels like footy's back when this game's on the tally. And that's
And that was
Thursday.
a big game last year. I remember that game as well.
Yeah.
Can you remember the outcome of that game?
Did Richmond gave them a real shake, and Carlton might have got them very late.
Yeah, I remember.
It was a good game of footy, and because Richmond were very young, and maybe they won. No, Richmond won. Yeah,
I
Richmond, because they
reckon
were
Mick Malloy
yeah,
might have been talking about it. Anyway, what are your thoughts
yeah.
about this game on this between the Blues and the Tigers?
Well, if we're talking about Carlton throwing their memberships in the microwave after opening round, if they're to go down against Richmond, I will be tuning into Talkback Radio next week because some of the Carlton supporters go off their heads when they lose. And this will be no different. And the Tigers, again, they're another year older. They've picked up some excellent players in the draft. So they're no easy beats anymore, the Tigers. And the Blues are going to have to be right on their game if they're going to beat Richmond. But I don't know. I'm going to say the Tigers in a bit of an upset here, Cam.
Right, yeah, I'm still just hanging on the Talkback Radio comment. Just the level of outrage you get on Talkback Radio, I just love it.
Out and outrage. It's outrage.
Bombers and the Hawks.
Bombers and the Hawks historically hate each other, and that's gone on for 40 years. There was the big brawl in the early 2000s where Dermot Brereton came down at halftime and told Hawthorn to draw a line in the sand, and then there was big all-in brawls took place after that. We had Zach Merritt try and cross, the captain of Essendon, try and cross from Essendon to Hawthorn last year in a deal that didn't get done. And the Hawks will be looking to bounce back after their opening round loss to the Giants. But I think they will. I think the Hawks should get over the line here, Cam, because they should be thereabouts at the end of the year.
Yeah, very good. I didn't give my tip for that last game. I'll go the Blues up against the Tigers, and I'll go the Hawks up against the Bombers. Western Bulldogs up against GWS. Both teams had victories last week. I'm surprised that there's such a difference in the odds at this stage.
Well, historically, there's another two teams that really don't like each other a whole lot. They've had some history, both of these sides, when they come up against each other. The Dogs were fantastic, as we mentioned, against the Lions. The Giants were fantastic against the Hawks. This one's at Marvel Stadium on Saturday afternoon. And both teams coming off fantastic wins, but I'm just going to have to favour the Dogs purely for the fact that it's at Marvel.
I'll go the other side of the fence. I will take the Giants there. Your Geelong Cats up against the Fremantle Dockers. Can you see the Cats getting a win in round one?
It's going to be difficult for them to turn around the form that you saw 5 or 6 days ago into a victory over Freo. I consider Freo to be one of the main contenders this year for the flag. So for the Cats to get a win here, it will be a drastic turnaround, but I just don't think they can, which is a shame because once upon a time, Kardinia Park was a fortress and sides just did not beat Geelong at home. And they're starting to do that now, which is a bit of a concern. But I'm going to go against my Cats, and I think Freo win this.
Really?
Yep.
No, I'm going with your Cats at home.
I hope you're right.
They would have licked their wounds last week, and I
Yeah.
reckon they'll come good. And I think the point you make about they would have started pre-season maybe a few weeks later because they were a finals team.
Yeah. And it makes a difference. And we could go back the last few years and just see how the grand final side started their year. Remember, last year Brisbane started not too bad, but the year before they lost the first 6 games.
Yeah, they were ordinary, weren't they? Look, I last week the Gold Coast Titans got towed up by the Sharks, and I'm hoping they can turn it around in 1 week. So
Yeah.
I'm going to use the same logic there that
Yeah.
you can turn it around. A week is a long time in football.
There you go, 100%. Our next one, the Swans and the Lions, Cam at the SCG on Saturday night.
Yes.
The Swans were sensational last week, and particularly after halftime, they really looked impressive. And once they got a run on and they kicked goal after goal after goal after goal in the third quarter and made Carlton look absolutely silly, it's hard to see Brisbane beating them in the SCG this week. And I'm going to tip the Swannies.
Yeah, I will too. The defending premiers, the Lions, 0-2 after 2 games. I'll back the red and the white. Magpies and the Crows, Battle of the Birds.
This will be good. Now, I went out on a limb last year and I picked the Giants to win the flag. This year I'm going out on another limb and I'm picking Adelaide to win the flag this year. In my theory being, Cam, they finished on top last year, which was a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. They're only going to be better this year on. They had a bit of a debacle with Isaac Rankin and a bit off-putting towards the finals at the end there, which sort of threw the whole team, upset the whole balance of the whole club, really.
Remember, they got bundled out of the finals, didn't they? They minor premiers and just straight sets, wasn't it?
Yep, straight sets, and I think they can go better this year. And I'm going to pick them for the flag. And if I'm going to pick them for the flag, I'm going to pick them to beat Collingwood on Saturday night at the G.
Yeah, I will go with the Magpies. They are tough. They're just so hard to get past. Kangaroos and Port Adelaide. Is this the year that the Kangaroos will start to come good?
Well, they probably need to. I think this is Alistair Clarkson's 4th year at the helm. He has made mention to people that if they haven't improved after 4 years, he's gone. But, whether that's a throwaway comment or not, Port have got under new coach Josh Carr after Kenny Hinkley's reigned for so long. So it'll be interesting to see what changes Josh Carr brings to Port Adelaide. And North, they've had an impressive start to the year, albeit in practice matches, but they did beat Collingwood the other week in Ballarat, and they looked pretty good. But to do it for 4 points is another story, and I think Port should just have a little bit too much talent. But in saying that, Cam, I wouldn't be surprised if North win it.
I'm going to tip the Kangaroos. It's time they came good. Changing of a coach, I think, is a big deal. New systems, new structures, and all the little things that an experienced coach of Ken Hinkley would have been doing. Some of those things might have just, might get missed. But I will give Port a rap. I do like the colour of their gather round jersey that they've got in the pipeline. They're doing a bit of social media about it at the moment. It looks quite nice. It's a standout jersey, but I will tip the Roos there.
You are big on your jerseys. I do know that.
I focus a lot of time. In fact, if you listen to the call from the rugby sevens, I reckon about 50% of what I said over the 2 days was commenting on the jerseys. Fashions of the field. Demons up against the Saints.
Another new coach, Stephen King, ex-Geelong captain, is coaching Melbourne this year. And I think there'll be some form of improvement with the Demons this year. There's a bit of a concern at present. Cozzy Pickett's gone back to Darwin for family reasons, but they do expect him to be back in Melbourne on Friday and play. If that doesn't eventuate, that's a very big loss for the Demons. But from what I saw again for the Saints the other night, I think they should have enough firepower. And if they, like I said earlier, if they can stay composed and make better decisions, particularly going inside 50 with the ball, they should beat Melbourne.
All right, let's both jump on the Saints there. Let's wrap this thing up. The last game, Suns and the Eagles.
No-brainer, Suns. Suns by a lot. From what we saw last week, Suns by a lot here.
Betting markets at the moment, $1.01 up against $19.
There you go. I don't think I've seen a greater discrepancy in the markets for quite some time. That is huge. So, yeah, that would be upset of the century if the Eagles to venture up to the Gold Coast and beat the Suns, but couldn't see it happening.
Yeah, and because we mentioned gambling, I suppose we better say gambling responsibly there. Look, Jono, thanks for that. Let's see if we have egg on our face after round one, but it's great to be talking with you again. The AFL for 2026.
Great to have footy back, Cam, isn't it?
How good.
Magnificent.
This is WCBH on Darwin's 97.7.